Been a week since Gareth Southgate resigned as the England manager, and no word as yet as to who the FA are anointing as his successor. Eddie Howe is the favourite with the bookmakers, and he's been speaking to Newcastle's in-house media and the written press during their camp in Germany. Yesterday, the Daily Mail's North East correspondent Craig Hope was on the Sunday session, and he gave his thoughts on the motivation behind Howe's comments.
We went out to see the team at Adidas HQ on Friday. You travel to Germany. There's only one question. There's one issue needs answering. Is Eddie Howe going to be the next England manager? And we went to watch the team train in the morning, and the word around the camp was that Eddie was going to sit down with us newspaper journalists and commit himself to Newcastle United. We'd in effect, we'd leave having got our story, but it would be the end of the story. We then sat and he came in, and it was quite extraordinary, really. 25 minutes, half an hour. It was incredible. I really didn't expect it. This was straight from Kevin Keegan, not the Kevin Keegan of the Entertainers era, but Kevin Keegan who, riled against the hierarchy during the Mike Ashley ownership. It was straight out of Rafa Benitez's playbook. It was basically back me, support me, or lose me. Eddie Howe's never done that before. This was new territory. Perhaps he's done it with the strength and the confidence of knowing there is interest from England. He was at pains, to be fair to him. He said this has nothing to do with England. Park England in the corner. This is about me and Newcastle United. There's a new structure above him. He's lost key allies and Amanda Stavey and Mehrdad Qadusi. A new sporting director has come in, a new performance director has come in. And I think that end there is uncertainty, and Eddie Howe doesn't know how it's going to play out going forward. Now, he could have kept all of this in private. He could have had these discussions internally, but he chose to air it with us and put it out there that he wants to feel the love, the support, and he wants to have, crucially, the working conditions that he believes are optimum for the success of Newcastle United.
And he's absolutely right, isn't he? Because ultimately, he did reaffirm his commitment to the club. He clearly loves and appreciates the fans, but he was pretty forthright when he said Newcastle have to make sure that the conditions that I am working in are right. He says he has to be free to do the job the way he wants to do it under a hierarchy that now includes a new sporting director, which he wasn't really part of the process in helping or understanding about who's going to be appointed, and performance director James Bunce. Now, I mean, as Craig was saying there, he has lost key allies. It is a different structure. And if it is going to be a slightly different way of working and it's not going to work, then now is the time to find that out, when there is the opportunity to go and work somewhere where he would be given the reins to work the way he wanted to at England.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting to see actually the different ways in which these comments were reported. Some outlets were suggesting it was 100% commitment to Newcastle. Others, like Craig Hope and like you and I, read between the lines and thought actually that there's a message there. I am happy, but I need the support. I need to be able to work in the way that I've always worked. And Eddie Howe has always been very much his own boss, as we know from dealings with him at Bournemouth.
I think Craig sort of hit it on the head, though. As the ones that actually went out to see him, instead of just the in-house media and listening to what was said there, but the ones that spoke to him got 25 minutes from him in which he said, made it pretty clear, I need to be backed here.
Yeah, and there has been a big period of upheaval. We touched on this with Dara at the end of last week when he was suggesting that there's no way that Eddie Howe would swap a lucrative Premier League contract at one of the up-and-coming clubs for England. And we said, well, actually, he's lost Amanda Stavely. There's a new sporting director, as you've alluded to, who's come in that maybe he didn't know too much about. There's also a new performance director. Again, I'm not sure that Eddie Howe was too aware that process was taking place. So if the FA are to strike, and as of this morning, I understand there hasn't been any approach to speak to Eddie Howe or Graham Potter, who's another potential target, then they may just sense now is the right time. They may also opt to keep their powder dry, see how the season unfolds for Eddie Howe, maybe wait and see if there's a situation where Newcastle move on from Eddie Howe, or Eddie Howe moves on from Newcastle, and then there's no compensation to pay.
Is that the way that the England team should be operating?
No, not at all. I think, to quote Simon Jordan, who usually sits in this chair, you need to go out and get the best in class. And if you want an England manager to manage the England team, then Eddie Howe, I think, is the best homegrown candidate. But you'll be able to correct me. I can't really recall a time when the FA have paid compensation to get a manager out of a contract. Have they done that?
Did they play compensation for Sven-Göran Eriksson when he was leaving Was he leaving Lazio to go to England at the end of?
It's not common practice, though, is it?
It's certainly not. No, but they must have paid compensation to West Bromwich Albion for Roy Hodgson, I would have thought.
But not at the level that we're talking about, I don't think, for Eddie Howe.
But £5 million nowadays, come on, for a top-level manager is about par for the course. And we don't want to overplay the situation here, because I think in an ideal world, Newcastle fans would be sitting here listening, well, we want Eddie Howe. And absolutely right. And do you know what? If the club want Eddie Howe and Eddie Howe wants to stay, and it's all going to be hunky-dory going forward, then it's great for him and great for Newcastle that can work out. But if there are situations there that he's not 100% comfortable with, and if there is a new sporting director who's got relationships with other managers and thinks to himself, well, actually, in 6 months' time, I might want to replace you with this guy and then take it onto a different level or a different direction, maybe, is probably more the sort of appropriate way of saying that, then it's best to sort that out now while this job is in the offing, rather than waiting until it's gone, and then Eddie finds himself out on his ear and without an opportunity to go elsewhere.
Well, it happened to Harry Redknapp, didn't it, when he was at Tottenham?
Exactly.
He nearly got the England
Eddie,
job.
having worked with Harry, will be all full too aware of that.
Yeah, ended up getting sacked by Tottenham, and all of a sudden he was neither Tottenham nor England manager. I think, out of respect to Eddie Howe, Newcastle need to, if there is any thought that the new sporting director at some point wants to bring in a new manager, then they shouldn't stand in his way and make it difficult for Eddie to take this England job. But football is a business, and it becomes a bit of a game of poker, doesn't it? We've mentioned that the FA could opt to put Lee Carsley in interim charge and see what opportunities developed. Equally, Newcastle, if they think England are going to come calling, that they're going to make it as difficult as possible so they get maximum compensation.
It certainly is a game of poker, and everybody knows that Paul Mitchell's got a very good relationship with Maurizio Pochettino from their time together previously. They're big admirers. They sort of know each other well. So there is that contact as well. So there's that in the mix.
There's a jigsaw puzzle to be put together.
There's a sort, and sometimes that jigsaw puzzle goes together really easily, and you can see it a long way off. And then there's other times where you think you can see what the pattern's going to be, and actually it never works out like that, and people go in completely different directions. But I think the FA have got to be pretty decisive here. I mean, it isn't a secret that Gareth Southgate's tenure was coming towards its end. They should have had in mind a succession plan. It's very different for the FA because they can't do what clubs do and have a little chat with this one and have a little chat with that one. They're the upholders of conduct in this country as far as football is concerned. So they've got to be seen to be conducting themselves in a whiter-than-white fashion. That's great. That's fine. I'm sure that is how they operate. But they did need to think about who they might be going after. Yeah,
and I'd like to see them move a little bit more decisively. I don't think it's an ideal scenario that Lee Carsley ends up in interim charge, particularly against the Republic of Ireland in September. Obviously, they've got a couple of months to get their house in order. I think Carsley will be a contender as well. I know there's been a little bit of pushback from some quarters, but I understand why he's in there thinking. I still think it will be an Englishman.
Actually suggesting that would be a good move for England. In fact, one or two of the under-21 players have come out in support of Lee Carsley.
Yeah, Rico Lewis, I think, has spoke glowingly. But it's more the supporters. I think, we know people who follow England and can be quite critical of the FA, and they see Lee Carsley very much as the safer and the cheap option, a clone of Gareth Southgate. I think that's unfair. If you've watched the under-21s play, that they play a very different, more entertaining way of football than maybe we've seen from England, certainly at this tournament in Germany.
Well, we had him on the show, didn't we? Lee Carsley, a year ago, after guiding the England under-21s to the European Championship.
Yeah, we did. And I think at that time there was big talk that he might end up at the Republic of Ireland, and when we put him on the spot about that, and he expertly batted the question away, but he had the opportunity to go and manage Ireland. There's no question about that before they put a dentist in charge. So I think the reason he stayed with the FA is because he thinks he's got a shot at the top job.
They put a dentist in charge after having an interim themselves for nearly 9 months.
Yeah, but
and the dentist actually is a former Iceland international manager.
I'm being a little bit harsh.
You're being facetious.
But I hope when you commentate that game, there's going to be plenty of dental puns. Brace yourself for an entertaining evening, etc.
Very good.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.